Okay, and now we are live. So let's give it just a moment.
Great. Should I post link?
Yeah, go ahead and post the link if you wouldn't mind. Um, and because we are good to go here right now. And we are streaming to YouTube.
Excellent.
All right, Mr. Spinum, thank you so much for joining us today. We are just going to kind of do a little bit of an intro here while we're going to wait for some people to get into the room.
Happy to join you, Jonathan.
You are a freaking legend. For those of you who do not know Mr. Svining, he is the Tyranids player and the math wizard of Team Norway in our WTC team. And basically, every time we have any questions, we go to him for crunching all the math. So this is the dude himself. Just making sure that I am. Yeah, all right. So we are officially live. Everything is perfect. Let me just go ahead and copy this here. All right, so today we are talking about the Tyranids. This is Tactical Tyranid tier list. What we're going to be doing is we're going to actually be ranking all the Tyranids throughout the index today. But unlike some other tier lists, what we'll be doing is we're actually talking tactics. We're going to be including the units, abilities, and the utilities in our decisions. It's not simply like the damage output stuff. But because damage is very important, and we have a masterful mathematician with us, he is absolutely going to be helping and linking us and showing us spreadsheets that have damage profiles that will really, really surprise everyone. And it's going to be really, really exciting. We're all going to learn a bunch. We'll talk about the Tyranid units in depth. I'm actually going to be asking questions and talking about how, as a non-Tyranid player, we feel about facing these foes. And then Mr. Zvinum is going to blow your mind with some amazing tactics if you are a Tyranid player. He's going to blow your mind with some tactics and some terror if you're not a Tyranid player. So we are going to jump right in it. Please, at any point in time, type into the comments and ask any questions that y'all have, and we will be really very happy in order to talk to anyone. So, oh, Nicholas Anstedt's here for the math hammer, bro. You're about to get sick of math. So, basically, let's just jump right into it. What do you say, Mr. Smining?
Yeah, let's go.
All right, cool. So we have ranked it. We have an S tier, A tier, B tier, C tier, D tier. Let's just really quickly define what these tiers mean. Svinum, do you want to take it from?
Yeah, what I'm thinking is that the S tier units are the units that I basically always play. Not literally all of the time, but I need a really good reason not to start them. Absolutely. And and the A tier units, those are units that I'll put into the list right away. I might remove them when I'm tight on points, but those are good starting point units. The B tier is stuff that those units in a given list, I probably won't play half of them, but I'll always look at them and think, could this maybe make it in? The C tier stuff, it's a bit similar to B tier. It's stuff that's a bit situational. I'm thinking it's a bit bad on its own, but there could easily come up some sort of situation where its niche is useful. And the D tier is stuff that I don't play.
Yeah, and Patrick Guthrie here says that Toxicrene's in S tier. Sorry, Patrick, you might be a little disappointed. Okay, so let's just start. We're going to start with all the characters, then we'll go through all of our infantry, then we'll do like our fast attack type things, even though fast attack doesn't exist for, and then the heavies, and we're going to talk about the Forgeworld as well. Some of these things we'll go really in depth on. Some of them we'll kind of breeze over if there's not much to say. So let's start with big dog number one, Svinung, Mr. Walkrant.
Yeah, the Walkrant. The Warfront is very good, I think. So you've been hyping up all of this math, Jonathan, but I don't actually think we need to look at the math because it sucks. But it isn't the point. The Walking Hive Tyrant gives a lot of CP, and maybe his most useful ability is to give assault to all your units within 6 inches. And Tyranids have a lot of high damage, short range attacks, so not having him, the few games I've tried to play without it, I feel completely hamstrung. My shooting units barely don't do anything. So the Walking Hive Tyrant has to go in S in my book. Now, it's quite expensive, but it's fine. I have to have it.
So right off the bat, what are some of those real combos that we're really looking at? I assume we're talking about Tyrant or Zoanthropes for sure. I assume we're also talking about things like Exocrines, because giving those bad boys advanced shoot is probably really important at times.
Yeah, Zoanthropes and Exograins, those are the two main culprits. Also, Barbgaunts can be an option, and Tyrannofexes with the Flamer. It could be nice to advance it to get into a good position to Overwatch with the Flamer.
And that's a really big deal with about the Barbgaunts, I think you just mentioned, because one of the things that we'll see when we get to Barbgaunts, one of basically their only weakness is the fact that line of sight is hard to get in the new maps. So giving them the ability to advance and still shoot can get them that line of sight that can be very challenging in our new maps. So yeah, that's awesome, man. So we've got Big Boy. He is himself rocking on the S tier. Looks like the next round we have is the Parasite, baby. Parasite was a nightmare of last edition. What are we thinking now?
It's a bit fun to evaluate the Parasite because it's very context dependent on how good I think it is. The first thing I thought is, well, this looks bad, and the reason is that the reason for that is that it looks bad in comparison to a Lictor. A Lictor is 15 points cheaper. It's tougher. It hits harder. I should start saying the point of both a Parasite and a Lictor is to have what's it called? The lone operative keyword.
Right.
They want to stand on an objective and hold it and force the opponent to come to you. And they both do that. But the Lictor has infiltrate, which the Parasite doesn't, and it's tougher, and it hits harder, and it's cheaper. Now the Parasite flies and moves 4 inches faster, which is decent. But I think it's clearly worse than the Lictor. So why would I take a Lictor, or why would I take a Parasite instead of a Deathleaper or a Lictor? Now, the clue here that makes me consider this unit regardless is that most of the unnamed Tyranid characters are quite bad. So you don't want to play them, but you have to play them to play the Alien Cunning Warlord trait for redeploy. Now it gets more complicated because it's an FAQ issue whether you get to redeploy before or after the roll to go first. But say in a tournament that says that you do get to redeploy after the roll, such as WTC, then Alien Cunning becomes a must take, and you might consider the Parasite instead of a Lictor just to fill up that roll.
Gotcha.
So on those grounds, I would put the Parasite in a B tier. Otherwise, C if it wasn't for the Alien Cunning interaction.
So from everything you just told me, it basically, to me, not being a NIDS player, it sounds exactly like what we want people to understand a B tier unit is. Actually, not unusable, a useful unit, but maybe you have other units that can do its job significantly better. But in a certain context, yeah, maybe we definitely need it. So that basically perfectly defines a B tier. So I'm glad we brought that up early on. I think that works really, really well.
Great.
All right, next guy. One of my favorite new models. Holy crap, this model is sick. How sick is he on the tabletop?
The Winged Tyranid Prime. I haven't played any with it. The model is cool. I agree. I haven't really found any role for it. Anything. It can join a warrior unit, which is weird because it's fast and very slow, or it can join a gargoyle unit, which is weird since it makes them killier and they don't want to be killy. So I would just put it in C tier.
Okay, so it's not that he's necessarily bad. It's just that he doesn't really serve any purpose.
Yeah. If he was 20 points cheaper, I would play him, but it doesn't really serve any purpose.
Okay, cool. So, because what is the buff that he gives to the Tyranid warriors?
I don't even know. Sustain hits, I believe, and he fights on death on a 4+. Which
is kind of awful for a single character.
Yeah.
Okay. Next one, I think this guy, we are actually going to bring up some math because I think you guys need to understand exactly what this next big boy does. Mr. Old One Eye. So I know for me personally, Old One Eye is a very terrifying target. So the armies that I play is I play Orcs and I play Custodes. Those are my two dudes. And without dedicated tank, you're not killing that dude from a range. And he also heals. So there's basically no point in even trying to blink shot him either. So if you have an army that has no actual dedicated anti-tank, Old One Eye is kind of a nightmare because he will get to your lines. If you do have dedicated tank, luckily this guy's is bodyguarded by Carnifexes, which still makes him quite hard to get to. Because I'm not saying a Carnifex is necessarily horribly difficult to chew through, but it's not smokingly easy. Plus, we also always have the rapid ingress strat to get them into combat. Do you want to talk about this a little bit, and then we'll maybe share some of what his damage looks like?
Yeah, let's do that. So what Old Old One Eye is, he's basically a stat stick. He has some text on his datasheet about helping Carnifexes, but that's a lie. The Carnifexes help him.
Got it.
He's cheap, he's tough, and he smashes stuff. That's it. He's only 140 points and deals a lot of damage. So the profile itself is he has 6 attacks. Let me find it. He has a strike profile and a sweep profile. The strike profile is 6 attacks, hitting on 3s, strength 14, AP 3, damage D6 plus 1. And that's very good because he is so cheap and he can get full rerolls to hit. So should we look at it a bit more in depth?
Yeah, I think so. And he also gives the Carnifexes full rerolls to hit, right?
Yes, he does that. It's somewhat besides the point, but it does that.
But that would apply to their range as well, because suddenly you have heavy venom cannons that actually get, even though they're still not maybe amazing, it does make them a lot better.
Yes.
Cool. So
certainly.
All right. So I pulled up the inputs here. Where do you want me to go? Damage or PPP?
Let's go to the PPP first. Okay. So some of you might have seen this spreadsheet before. I keep posting it on the Tyranid Discord. It's a math hammer spreadsheet I've made, and there are 2 purposes for it. One is to compare a bunch of units into a bunch of units instead of just 1 versus 1. And the other is to rank point efficiency rather than just damage. Damage is well and good, but figuring out point efficiency is really neat, I think. So if you go to so what PPP stands for is points spent per point killed. So can you go to the Old One Eye line?
So
it's on line 74.
It's on 13 right here, right?
Are you in the monster sheet or in the
I'm in the Carnifex sheet.
Oh, cool. Yeah, let's do the Carnifex sheet.
Cool.
So then you can look at line.
Yes.
It's
line 13. I got it pulled up right here.
Yeah, or even line 35, where he has the hit rerolls.
Okay, sorry, my mistake. Gotcha.
So what the numbers mean are how many turns Old One Eye needs to spend killing to kill his points back, and values around 1 are really good for melee units, and he has values around 1 into almost all of the tough targets.
It's actually really impressive.
So against the Knight Spoiler, for instance, he has 0.6. So if I pull up the calculator and do 140 points divided by 0.6, he kills like 230 points of Knight Spoiler per activation, which is really good. And if we look at a reasonable unit, if you look at the line 17 on the Carnifex for comparison.
Okay.
A Carnifex is a reasonable unit, and if we take a good loadout and do both close combat and shooting, you can see the values are somewhere around 2. So much worse than Old One Eye. That's why he's great.
Oh, so is this a Carnifex with Old One Eye? Because it says 1.6 where I'm looking. I might be looking at the wrong one.
On line 17, it's without.
Oh, that's without. So it says 1.6 right here. Under the Knight Spoilers, right?
Yes, I agree.
Okay.
So less than half as good as Old One Eye.
Dang, that's a big difference.
Yeah, it's a bit unfair since we're doing Old One Eye with the buff, but he brings the buff, so that's fine.
He brings the buff. He brings the pain.
Yeah. We could also look at the tankiness sheet. Shall we do that?
Yeah, let's do that, because this is actually a really cool one that I hadn't seen before, so Svine just showed it to me today. It's a tankiness sheet, like how much damage can these guys actually take?
Yeah, so what we do now is that we look at the same sheet, but we just turn it around. Instead of caring about the damage on the rows, we care about damage on the columns. And we know what the damage and the PPP to be bad rather than to be good. So let's compare Old One Eye, for instance, with a Screamer Killer on the other row, on the other column, next column, I mean.
So we're looking right here at that 10.7?
Yeah, and let's see what a Zoanthrope does to it, for instance. A Zoanthrope has a 1.5 PPP into Screamer Killer and 2.6 into Old One Eye. So the Zoanthropes are a lot worse at killing Zoanthropes than Old One Eye.
Right on. Okay.
And if we compare to a Walking Hive Tyrant with Feel No Pain, it's 1.6 again. So Old One Eye, he's not uniquely tough, but he's pretty tough.
Right on. Okay, so he's a multi-use target, right? He deals mad damage, then he leads a unit, which can also deal mad damage. It also makes him very hard to kill. Maybe he by himself is not the hardest to kill. He plus a Carnifex or even two Carnifexes is very challenging to kill. Sounds to me like this is an epic unit especially for like our rapid ingress. And I think we had a comment earlier where someone was asking about, is this our main rapid ingress target? Well, what do you think about that?
There are a few rapid ingress targets that I would consider. I like Old One Eye with one or maybe two Carnifexes. The Carnifexes are only okay, so one is sometimes sufficient.
Okay.
That's the best unit for smashing stuff, and we can also consider Harrispecs or some Raveners. Those are the main three I like. Okay. And any configuration of those three are decent, I think. It's hard to play more than two for the rapid ingress role, since you mostly can only do it on turn 2 and turn 3.
Right.
But I think I like this one the best of it in the meta right now, and that's a bit context dependent again, because I find that I often struggle killing tough vehicles, and that makes me want the Old One Eye unit more than the other two.
So where are we putting up?
I would put him on S just on that, because I struggle killing the vehicles.
So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to step in just a little bit, and people might hate me for it. I'm going to drop him into A for right now, and then ask us to reevaluate maybe at the end. Simply from the standpoint from what you just said, is you've got other units that serve his purpose quite well.
That's very fair.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Okay, and I think we're going to get to those. You mentioned like the Haruspecs and stuff. So there's other guys who do what he does, and for an equivalent point cost. So maybe that's why I'm actually putting him in the A. Not saying he's not an amazing unit. So don't hate me, everyone. Please smash the like button. Please slash the like button. Give me a subscribe. But yeah, he's going to A for right now, and when we can evaluate later, and and we'll talk about later. All right, we got a broodlord here. Now I know a broodlord has actually run into me and messed me up pretty hard. When he seems like a huge force multiplier to the Genestealers if you are running the Genestealers. I know he ran in and he slaughtered fairly easily 2 or 3 custodians when he ran into me, and that was a big surprise to me. So what do we think about this guy?
Everything that you said is very fair. And I've also looked at the point efficiency of the broodlord and his Genestealers, and it's good. It's good, and they have an 8-inch scout move, which is also good. So all of this makes them seem pretty nice. And I have a bit of a pause though about them, because they have some quite fierce competition. Okay. And from units like Raveners, Melee Warriors, Von Ryan's Leapers, these are all similar-ish units. And my fear about the broodlord and his Genestealers is that they are vulnerable to indirect fire, and there's a lot of indirect fire in the meta right now. For instance, they fold to Desolation Marines with Castellan Launchers. And I like designing armies where I don't have any units that cost me a lot, that I lose a lot on if they're shot by that thing.
So what's their price? What are they costing right now?
It's 18 per Genestealer, so that's 180 if you want to take all 10 to maximize his output. And then the broodlord itself is like 100, so it's 280 for a very killy unit. That's somewhat fast. It's not fast like they were before, since they lost the advanced charge, but that's somewhat fast. And then they all just die to the Castellan Launchers, and I lose, so I don't want that.
Okay.
So based on that, I would put it in B. It has a lot of promise, but it has some problems right now. So I want a particular reason to play it.
And that seems super fair to me, because from what it just sounds like a lot of times maybe you could take a Hormagaunt or something to serve a similar purpose for a lot less points and be killed just as easily.
I have to disagree there, because Hormagaunts are not in this conversation. They don't kill stuff.
Got it. All right. So I just completely misunderstood, and that's my apologies right there.
But if you said Ravener instead, then I would agree.
Okay. Cool. Got it. All right. All right, so let's talk about Wing Tyrant. He was the terror of Ninth Edition. Where are we putting him in the 10th edition?
C.
Oh, okay. All right. Let's do the sheets. And then let's talk about it.
Yep. Let's.
Let me pull him up. Where is he at? He's gonna be in monsters. We've got Hive Tyrant. Then we've got Wing Tyrant. Okay, we're on the PPP for Wing Tyrant. If you guys are looking, he's actually quite bad.
It's not absolute trash, but it's like 1/3 the efficiency of old one eye.
Wow. Yeah, that's actually shocking. That's actually really surprising me. He's at a 2.0 for a Raider, a 1.5 for the Knight Despoiler.
Yeah.
It's actually not very good.
No, it's not that good. So, he's expensive. He's not that fast actually. He used to be incredibly fast, but now it's not. And he's frail, he's expensive, and he's not that fast, and weak. Perhaps you could fill some role for him. I don't want to say quiet D, since he's not terrible at any of those things, but not great at any either.
Okay, what would he need to have for you to like be thinking about including him?
If you were 50 points cheaper, I suppose.
Oh, got it. That sounds like a C tier unit to me. Okay.
So one thing that happened was that he lost 4 inches of movement, and now you can't really move over buildings anymore, so his fly almost lost all meaning. So he will struggle a lot to get across the board.
I will say that that's a big factor for me as well, because I'm not worried about him getting to me as coming out there. I'm actually much more worried about you using a rapid ingress to get old one eye at me, or I'm much more worried about you advancing an Escrin to shoot me than I am about a Wing Tyrant getting to me, just because honestly flyers aren't nearly as mobile as they used to be. So this next guy is the Neurotyrant. Neurotyrant's one of the newer models. He looks sick on initial investigation. And
yeah,
what's his ability? He gives you a second shadow in the warp, right?
No, not quite.
Yeah,
He has 3 useful abilities.
Yep.
1, he makes your shadow in the warp better if he's alive. They get -1 to the test.
That's a big deal, actually.
2, in your command phase, he gives 2 units within 12 a synapse counter token, so they count as being in synapse.
Oh, that's in the command phase.
Yeah, that's in the command phase.
That's
so what's
cool.
really neat about that is that you can give it to a unit that you're sending out from your army, say a 6-man blob of Raveners. You give them the synapse buff, and they run out, and now they have synapse. And what that means is that you increase the power of most of the Tyranid stratagems. So that's really neat. So you can use more stress on them and increase their power. So you've supported the revenue unit, great. And he also has a reasonable flamer. 2d6 shots, strength 5, AP1, damage 2. Reasonable. So on just looking at the datasheet, this guy seemed great to me. I thought, I might consider him at 150. And then the points came, and he was 105 points. And I thought, what's this? I'll easily play him. But I've played him in 3 games, I think. And so far, at least, he hasn't really done anything in any of them. None of the abilities are good. Shadow in the Warp isn't good. The Synapse thing comes up, but not every game. And he dies by the time he gets to use his Flamer. So he didn't do anything.
So I would argue with you when you say that Shadow in the Warp is not good, because it's happened to me twice now when I've been playing Tyranids, where I've had a unit of Alaris Terminators fail their Shadow in the Warp test. And suddenly they can't fight first when you charge them. And suddenly I didn't score the objective. And that is a really big deal. Especially when you make me at -1 to that leadership. Because I mean, at a leadership of 6, you probably shouldn't fail it. But at a leadership of 7, it's a coin flip. So I'm not saying it's going to be very impactful every game. But saying it's not good, I don't think that's a fair thing to say.
I am happy if Shadow in the Warp denies my opponent 5 victory points, and that's what it does. But I may be wrong. I might have just been unlucky. I can't tell. Right. So, but in some cases, again, like the fight first unit you're talking about, that is very powerful if it happens. But you have to hit the right matchup, and that exact unit that you're going to kill has to fail its test. So you can't really trust it. Still, I think the unit has promise, even though it hasn't worked out so far. So I would put it in B tier.
Cool. I like it. Next one, we have a guy that I know you and I disagreed on after you wiped the floor with me in one of our training matches. But let's talk about the Swarmlord.
The Swarmlord he's good. He's a good support character that smashes a bit in melee. He's expensive at 250, I believe.
Okay.
And what he does is that he gives you a CP every turn. Great. He does Vect to your opponent. Great. The issue is that we already have the Warprint at 220, maybe 250. I think the Warprint is better. So are we taking both of these? Are we spending 500 points on support characters that want to hide all game? I feel that I have to choose one of them, and I feel the Warprint is much better. We could look at the PPP if you like.
Let's take a look at that.
It's middling. It's okay.
Tyranid monsters. That's fine. Swarmlord right here. He's line 88. Pulse and Sabers together. It's definitely a lot prettier than the Winged Tyrant was.
Yeah, it's prettier than the Winged Tyrant. Not amazing, but it's okay. What I imagine doing with him is that I'll hide him for a turn or two behind a ruin, watch him rack up the CP, and then run out in the mid game and trade into something.
Fair enough.
His profile is very reasonable.
This is damage. Look, I'm just gonna take a look at his damage real quick.
Yeah.
Not like arguing here. I'm just kind of curious how it works. Okay, so he can do a fairly respectable 9 damage into. So he could respectably kill 3 Terminators in turn. That's fair.
Yeah. His 8 attacks hit on 2s, strength 9, AP 2, damage 3, and crucially twin linked for reroll to wound. That is very good.
And it's almost always going to be exploding on 6s because you're almost always going to take that, right? Against infantry?
Or lethal hits against vehicles.
Lethal hits. I see that too.
In the sheet we're looking at now, I didn't include either of those, but you'll often get one. But you'll often get one of them.
All right, so that's without either. So it does improve against whatever its intended target is. That's cool.
Yeah. So if I'm thinking high B tier, if you want to say A, sure.
I'm gonna drop him A, and then he might be lower A depending on how we go here. I gotta go check on these 2 little Termagants. I'm dog sitting. Smining, would you please go and talk about the Hormagaunts and the Termagants, and I'll be right back.
Yeah.
My apologies. Cheers.
See you. Right, so Hormagaunts and Termagants, they have 2 different roles. Jonathan, there is some sound on your end. I don't know if you can hear me. Anyways, the Hormagaunts, they're just 70 points for a unit of 10, and they do something unique and powerful. So I'm always tempted to play these. What they do is that they move 10 inches. They have advance on charge, and they have OC2. They have some melee stats, but those don't really matter.
Fair enough.
So that's really great for stealing objectives. What I'm concerned about, though, is that they are weak to indirect. If your opponent has a bunch of indirect, these are very frail. They can kill them. And If it were just the Hormagaunts and the Termagants, I would still play the Hormagaunts.
Okay.
I would play them in a heartbeat. But they have this massive weakness, and they have competition from another unit we'll be talking about later. So for now, I would say high B. I consider them. They're great for stealing objectives, but I'm scared of them getting shot.
And I think that's really important context. So just remember, guys, when we get to a few other units, you'll understand why these guys are B, because they're certainly not bad. That's not what we're saying. All right, where's the Termagant going? I'm sorry, I missed that part.
I'm just ranting, Jonathan. I haven't even gotten to the Termagant.
Oh, you saucy minx. All right.
For the Termagant, I would say a high C. I think other people maybe rank it higher than that, but I haven't really found a use case for it.
What do they do?
They have OC2. They cost 60 points per unit of 10. They have some okay insignificant shooting. And they get shot by Castellan launchers if you try to do a big unit of 20.
Okay.
So maybe there is some use case for them. I haven't found it, so I would say C.
Yeah, having a cheap 60-point unit is useful, but yeah, it doesn't necessarily need to do much. That's fair. Cool. Then we've got some bad boys who terrify me as a melee-based player. Holy crap, these guys are shockingly scary. Let's talk about them. These are the Barbgaunts.
Right. The Barbgaunts, they're actually an interesting unit to rank. When I saw their profile, I thought this unit is worth 80 points. I'll take one at 80 points. That their movement debuff is insane. Each infantry unit that they hit gets -1 to the move characteristic, to advanced rolls, and to charge rolls. So if you're threatened by an advanced and charge unit, it's -6 inches to the threat range. That's insane. And also, let's go look at the infantry PPP sheet.
Yeah, totally. Where am I going to pull them up? Tyranid infantry. There we go. We're on the PPP side. Barbgaunts.
You can see that they're not good into every target, but they have incredible shooting PPP.
They actually do really good into Necron warriors. That's surprising.
Yeah, and they're good into marines, and this is against all of this is against units in cover even. So they're great at shooting, and let's look at the tankiness sheet as well.
I was just told the weapon profile was cut off by the overlay, so I'm just gonna shift this just a little bit so people can see. Thanks for letting me know, guys, in chat. Appreciate that. All right, you're back to you, sub 5. It's fine.
Yeah, let's go to the tankiness sheet.
Tankiness. Tyranid tankiness. Here we go.
And let's look at the Barbgaunt column, the fourth from the left.
Okay.
So they have insane tankiness too, much better than almost all of our other infantry.
Yeah.
And the reason for this insane point efficiency numbers are that they just cost 50 points for a unit of 5. And so that's really great. And they invalidate some other units as well. Why should I take a Termagant unit to guard an objective when I can just take a Barbgaunt unit to guard that objective?
At 50 points, man, it's insane. I agree. It's such a value town. At what point cost do you think you have to think about taking them?
I think I would take one at 80. Okay. And at 100, I wouldn't take them in this meta. In another meta, I would still play 1.
Fair enough. So I know you and I spoke about this a little bit, but where are you wanting to put them on the ranking list?
Yeah. So now I've been singing the praises from quite a while. The issue for me is that on the tabletop in this meta, their performance doesn't quite match their stats, I think.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is that I think it can be hard to find 9s on relevant targets. A lot of armies don't have targets that are weak to their shooting. They don't have infantry units that want to come and charge me. So that makes them a lot less efficient. I thought they were auto 3 units at first, but now I just play 2 units. So I think high A. If you want to say S, that's fine by me. But in this meta, I would say high A.
I actually agree with you. And so if you're a Tyranid player here and you guys love the Barbgaunts, I agree with you. Barbs are amazing. And by the way, I am a pure melee army. I play Orcs and I play Custodes. I still only think they're A simply because of what Swanning just said. Currently in the new table layouts for like your WTC layouts and actually even the new GW open layouts, that's going to be hard to get them to actually see your enemy and actually shoot. In the combination with the walk rent, I think they become a lot nastier because suddenly you can advance and shoot them. And the fact that you can split their shots into like 3 different units and give each of those units minus to move and advance and stuff is what really, really sells it for me. But I'll leave them in A for right now because it actually is shockingly hard to get the ability to see your opponents now. It's one of the things about 10th is shooting damage has gone up like crazy. But good luck seeing your opponent now at the same time. Unless you're indirect. Okay, cool. So let's look at Rippers. I don't think we have to go too in-depth at them, but...
they're bad. Just put them low C.
Cool. They're probably cheap and they hold objectives. Is that about right?
They don't even hold objectives. They have
perfect.
OC 0. They halve your opponent's OC. That's interesting, but they can't take an objective of their own, and I think that's a death sentence for them.
That's pretty hilarious. Yeah, if they had an OC of 1 and halved your OC, maybe that's we're speaking.
Then we're maybe in A territory. I don't know.
Right. It's actually kind of funny. All right, then we have Neurogaunts. These guys, honestly, to me, they look like garbage, and they're simply there to move block.
Yeah, I think they're garbage. I would put them somewhere in C. Yeah, I like them less than Termagants. if they just have OC1, that's the problem, and it's 45 points for a unit. That's really cheap, but they
Cheap as
don't.
hell.
They don't do anything. I think I'd really consider them if they had OC2, but I don't really see the use case over Gargoyles or. You can take Gargoyles or Hormagaunts if you want to hold an objective, and if you just want to sit there, just take 5 Barbgaunts instead for 5 more points.
Yeah, Barbgaunts would definitely beat these guys out, in my opinion. All right, now we're talking about a unit that is competing with the Hormagaunts, I believe, and we have the Gargoyles. Let's
Gargoyles S.
Yeah, S. Oh, sell me, man. Sell me on this S here.
Okay, they cost 80 points, so 5 points more than the Hormagaunt unit.
Mhm.
They move 10 or 12. I forget. Let's check. I think it's 12.
Okay.
Garg.
Little
Yeah, it's 12.
fast boys.
Yes, and that's nice. They have OC2, so they can hold objectives. But so they also have an additional ability, which makes them move 6 inches after they've shot.
Woo! Scoot and shoot,
And-
everyone. The return of scoot and shoot.
Yeah, they can't charge that turn, but they're incredibly fast, and they even have assault guns as one of the few units left in the codex that has that innately.
Mm.
So you move 12, you advance, maybe a 4, so that's 60 inches, and you shoot, and you move 6 more, so that's 22, and you're OC2, so you can steal objective like nobody's business. This still leaves you vulnerable to the indirect thing I was talking about, but there's an additional trick as well. You can just deep strike them, since they have that on their datasheet, and then you deep strike them, shoot the unit, and just move on to their objective and take it. Now, it's possible to screen that out, but it's not easy to screen out. It's effectively a 3-inch deep strike with move, so it's hard to screen them out from everywhere, so they're really good at stealing objectives.
Yeah, that really sounds like it. I can tell you right now, if I had an 80-point unit that could go 22 inches, and there's still infantry keyworded, right?
Yeah.
So it's like old fly mechanisms where cause they basically just fly straight through buildings and stuff diagonally. If I had access to an 80-point unit that could move 12 inches directly through and then move an extra 6 inches, like that is insane. And I would pay a lot more than 80 points for that, and I do not have access to that. So 100% that sounds S to me. Movement wins games, and it seems like they can move anywhere they want to. They can score you secondaries. Their shooting doesn't matter. They just score secondaries. We have Genestealers, and I think the Genestealers probably just go right next to the broodlord. Is that right?
Yep.
All right, that makes
We've
sense.
talked about them.
They're essentially, it's the same conversation as the broodlord. They actually deal really good damage, but maybe you don't take them just for certain reasons. Maybe there's other units that can do their job just a little bit better. We're into the tiered warriors. Actually, we're moving along at a pretty good pace here. So now we're turning along into the... Oh, yeah. So Midnight just said Hierophant S tier. Don't worry, buddy. We're getting to the Hierophant. We freaking love the Hierophant. Now let's talk about these warriors, though. This is the ranged warrior variant. What do you got, Mr. Signing?
They're cheap at 70 points.
Mhm.
They're a good unit. My issue with them is that they don't do very much. Low B.
Low B. Yeah, when I was looking at their shooting, maybe we can just take a peek at that real quick.
Yeah, sure.
Because they actually don't really do that much when I was looking at it. I was actually kind of surprised. I thought they would be a little bit nicer than that. Where's the warrior ranged? Okay, so this is the PPP sheet for it. Basically, they're good into all the things you don't need to be good into.
Yeah.
And they're terrible into all the things that you need to be good into. That's not really a good mix.
Yeah, and they're a bit slow.
So this is one thing that I talk to people a lot in like the orc server, because people really want to take orc boys, and it's like, okay, well, orc boys aren't bad. Yeah, they slaughter termagants for sure, but do we need a unit that can kill termagants? No, we just don't. Which means the unit, while it's not inherently bad, yes, it can do a little bit of damage. Does it have a place in our army? And so for Tyranid warriors, it seems to me that their place is being cheap and providing synapse, not for being put into bricks and killing the opponent.
Yes, so maybe there's an issue there for them for being cheap and providing synapse.
Yeah.
Right now, I don't want that.
Okay.
I have Barbgaunts for being cheap, and I don't feel that providing synapse is a need that the my armies have.
Okay, fair enough.
So they're not bad. They're just
We do have a question here from Manic Gudimani. I probably butchered the name. Sorry, man, but I do appreciate your question. How many gargoyle units do you think are optimal? Are they S tier for 1 unit or are they S tier for 3?
I would take 2, I believe. The reason for that is that, or I guess you could play more if you're deep. I want to have 2 in deep strike. Let's say that instead.
Okay.
Because the reason for that is that 2 are good at using the opportunities your opponent present you with. It's hard for them to screen out all of their objectives from your deep strike shenanigans. But if you're having 3 in deep strike, then suddenly you need to be able to take 2 on one turn to get value from your gargs.
Sure.
And that isn't a guarantee that that's going to work.
Fair enough.
So I like having 2 in deep strike. Yeah, I guess you could take 3 and have 1 on the board, but then I get scared by the Castellan launchers again.
Yeah, Castellan launchers, big dicks.
So I wouldn't hate 3, but I like 2.
Cool, I like it. All right, so then we have melee warriors.
I like them more. We have this sort of range that we've been talking about of mid-range melee fighters, Reveners, melee warriors, leapers, and Genestealers. And what I like about these is that they don't need any support. They're just great on their own. Let's look at the PPP again.
This is the warrior Oh, that's actually quite good.
So what they get over a ranged warrior is 1 more attack, 1 more AP, and twin linked, I believe.
Oh, and they're twin linked. That's why they're PPP.
Yes, and they also essentially get real ones to hit in melee. So
that's cool. Okay. Yeah, that's cool.
They're really good into the light targets, and they're not bad into the heavy ones either.
No, I mean they were 1.5 against raiders.
Yeah.
That's actually pretty good, man.
Yeah. So I haven't been including these in my last couple of lists, and that's because they're slow. What I think they're great for is guarding an objective. They're not standing exposed out in the open. They can hide behind a wall close to the objective and say, "Are you willing to come here?" to the opponent, and then go and kill them. They're great at that.
What's their price point?
90 for a unit, 20 more than the ranged units.
Oh, so they are a little more expensive. But yeah, I mean you could plop that unit on a home field objective, and with the PPP that's killing Terminators at like what was it, 1.2 or 1.3, that seems pretty efficient.
Yes, but very slow. They only move 6 inches. Yes. So is that a role you want in your army? If yes, I'll play them. Currently, I don't think so. They're in B somewhere. I like them more than perhaps next to the Hormagaunts somewhere.
All right, that sounds totally fair to me. All right, let's talk about probably the best unit in the Codex, the Hive Guard.
Yeah, I don't like the Hive Guard. they have some stupid rules. They have no line of sight shooting, hitting on 4-up with Overwatch. That's broken. Luckily, their gun doesn't do anything, so it's fine. We could look at their PPP if you want to, just for laughs.
Yeah, let's do it, because I know I've heard some people who talk about these guys and that, they got good range and, you can get a spotter unit and maybe then they can use their indirects as better. I don't remember all the rules, but I would like to actually take a look at it. Where are these dudes? Hive Guard, number 18. They have a heavy weapon, so they do get the +1 hit when they're staying still. That makes them OP, right? Oh, wow, that's not good. So if you guys remember, red means if they're going into a Purgator squad, it costs 10 or 11 times the amount of points in Hive Guard to kill Purgators. That's bad. That's real bad.
Yeah, that's really bad.
I don't curse much for YouTube, but I'd be calling that something than just bad if we were not on YouTube.
Right, wow. And this is a kill, and this unit is supposed to kill your enemy, and this is including the heavy bonus, and it's not including the indirect penalty, so it's just totally atrocious.
That's not including the indirect penalty.
No.
So it's actually worse than this.
It's like best case for them.
That's awesome, dude. Okay, yeah, they suck. They're going right into D tier. Just
we have the shock cannon too, which is okay into some targets, but I think they're too narrow in application. So yeah, let's
Just don't, people.
Yeah.
All right.
Right.
Then we have Tyrant Guard. Tyrant Guard seemed to me like you're never taking Tyrant Guard unless they're going with Tyrant. Is that accurate?
Yeah, you could also have them with a Neurotyrant if you wanted to.
Well, it's still a Tyrant.
Fair enough. Fair enough. They're tanky.
Yeah.
If you want to make your Tyrant safer, they're nice. They move a bit slower than the Tyrant, which can be annoying.
Oh,
But most of the time it isn't because they can move through walls. I'm just thinking B. They're tanky. Do you need to protect the Tyrant?
I do want to clarify one thing here because I heard some people were talking about the when you add a monster to the unit that's infantry, the monster gets the infantry keyword. You're not actually wrong by saying that, but that doesn't mean the monster gets rid of the monster keyword, which means that the monster can't move through. Monster cannot move through walls just because he's attached to a unit of Tyrant Guard.
I think it's the Tyrant Guard can still.
Yes.
So the unit is both infantry and monster, but the Tyrant Guard models are just infantry, and the Tyrant model is just monster. And
right.
So since the rules for moving through walls, they check go by model, not by unit.
Exactly. So guys, don't get confused and think that your Tyrant can just suddenly now be moved through walls like he's infantry because he's the Tyrant Guard. He can't. But I do understand why that can be a little confusing.
I would say B, high B.
Cool. And then we have a guy who really annoyed me in our game. There was only one of them, but he had annoyed me to no end. This Pyrovore, right?
Yeah. What the Pyrovore does is he costs 30 points, he's slow, moves 5 inches. He shoots D6 plus 1 shots, strength 6, AP 1, damage 1, 28. And so it's reasonable shooting, but what he does is that he ignores cover, and he makes all your other units into that target ignore cover. And there is a lot of cover in this edition, and I want to play a lot of shooting.
It's almost impossible to not have cover in this edition.
Yeah, so I think that's a very useful thing to have edition. It's a nice utility thing. 30 points. I like him low A.
Yep. We do have a little comment here from Carnifex. Thanks for the comment, man. He says, I'd rather have an adaptive biology than Tyrant Guard, though. 95 points versus 25 points for his Walker. Do you have anything to say about that?
Yes, it's a bit less tough, but I'm also thinking that I'd rather have that. There's a problem, though, depending on how it's fact. The problem is that I want Alien Cunning, and I need a character to put it on. And often the only unnamed character I'm playing is the Warcrunt. So in that case, he has to carry Alien Cunning, and then you can't do the Feel No Pain, and then you might want the Tyrant Guard. So the relevant comparison would be a whole new character, say a Parasite or a Neurotyrant, and then that you have to factor that into the cost when you're comparing it to the Tyrant Guard.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, now we have the Biovore.
S. Top of S.
Dude, he's so broken, and I'm pretty sure it'll get fixed. So I'm not super worried about it, but
actually, in my games, I guess this is me as the Tyranid player.
Yeah, this is you as the Tyranid player. This is me as the not Tyranid player.
Yeah. So what it does is that it lets you do all the secondaries really cheaply, since mines for some reason are proper units and they can do actions. So you just plop down a mine into their deployment zone, and
Sorry, just 2 seconds.
and score secondary points. You could even use him to do fixed and score 30, 40 most games. I think 2 is nice. That allows me to do all the secondary stuff I want to do. Having more than that hasn't done much in my games. Yep. So
cool. Yeah, these dogs were eating something they weren't supposed to eat. Sorry. Okay. Where are we?
The mines suck. Just chuck them at the bottom of D.
Yep. You're never going to pay for mines at all. They're pretty awesome to have being shot from the Biovore to score those points, but you're never going to pay for them. All right, Raveners, the guys you've been harping about for quite a while. Tell me why.
Raveners are really good at killing stuff that's vulnerable to strength 5 AP 1 damage 1 attacks.
Yep.
They're fast, they move 12, They have Deep Strike. You can take them in blobs of 6 with Rapid Ingress, hide them behind the building, charge their soft bits. They have 7 attacks, twin linked. So let's go look at the PvP sheet again.
Raveners. Yeah, that sounds actually pretty scary. Oh, okay. And this is without your sustained hits that you may or may not have.
Yeah.
Ooh, that is pretty.
So if you look at the Genestealers on row 16 versus the Raveners at row 37,
Genestealers are here. That's not bad.
Both are good, but the Ravener line it's clearly much better.
Crushes.
Now, you could match it with a broodlord and having a bunch of buffs and blah blah blah, and then they'll get close. But the Raveners don't need support; they're just great.
That's cool. That's awesome. And there's a lot of things to be said for just having a unit that needs no support.
Yeah, agreed.
Cool.
So, you could say, oh, Raveners are great. S tier, play 12. The issue, I think, is that I struggle killing vehicles, and I don't struggle killing things that are weak to Strength 5 AP1, and that makes them worse. I would really like to have one unit of 6 for Rapid Ingress, but I would put them in A tier.
Cool. I like that. That makes a lot of sense to me. Guys, if you're enjoying this, please go and give me a like button and hit the subscribe, because we're actually going to be breaking these down for all factions. And there's a lot of work that goes into this, so we really appreciate Spinem taking the time to be up here. Let's talk about these Lictors. For me, when I was looking at the Lictor's profile, he seemed kind of cool, but the fact that he could only come in from Strat Reserves and not from Deep Strike seemed like a little bit of a negative for his rules for getting the free Rapid Ingress.
I agree. The Rapid Ingress stuff and the Deep Strike, their flavor text, he infiltrates.
Right. He's an infiltrator.
Yeah.
So his ability just doesn't really matter all that much.
Yeah. Maybe in some game it could matter. Another reason that it doesn't really matter is that I want to have 2 hammer units in Rapid Ingress, and there is no space for a Lictor.
But doesn't his Rapid Ingress let you Rapid Ingress even though you've already done it?
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it does. But the fact that it comes from Strat Reserve does make it a lot less good than coming from Deep Strike. But I think there is actually a little bit of utility there. He does strike me as a little interesting. I don't personally know too much about how I would use him, just because I'm not as familiar with the army.
Just don't read the infiltrate thing text. He has infiltrate. He's a lone operative. He's great. He can stand on an objective and force them to come to you.
Cool.
So A tier somewhere.
Dope. How many points is he?
75.
Ah, that's great. Yeah, that's so lone operative is so darn strong in this edition that 75 points for lone operative is freaking awesome. That's why I'm taking the Eversor in my Custodes list. You get 75 points for lone operative, and he can also slap someone. So, all right, this is, I believe, the Deathleaper.
Yes, it's the Deathleaper. He's very similar to Lictor. He's okay. 5 more points. He gets an additional wood. He gets a 4-up invul instead of a 5-up. And he replaces the useless Rapid Ingress ability we were talking about with a Battle Shock ability.
Okay.
It's not very good, but it's fine. I think I like this more than the Lictor, so higher in A. The main disadvantage of him, I think, is that he's a character, which can make your opponent score Assassinate. Against many Tyranid lists, if they're playing tactical secondaries, then drawing Assassinate is really bad, but having the Deathleaper enables that. Still, I like it more. He has fight first, like the Lictor, so he's really beefy. You can't really send any skirmishing unit out to take him down.
Fair enough. I can respect that for sure. We have Von Ryan's Leapers, though. These are new. I ran into them. I was not impressed with them at all. I don't know if that was just my experience running into them. What were your thoughts?
My thoughts are that they're too much jack of all trades. They have infiltrate, which is great, but they do the infiltrate stand on an objective thing worse than the Lictor. And their damage output, we can look at that.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, absolutely.
Because if that was higher, then this would be in.
Farm Ryans. They're probably a little lower.
It's on L. I just wrote Leaper.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah, that would do. Okay, so they handle light infantry just fine. They actually do. Oh, never. Yeah, they drop off a lot against your Terminators.
Yeah. Okay against light infantry, bad into the rest.
Which once again, you don't need light infantry help. So.
Yeah, and their role is if they get charged by light infantry, they win. That's their stake, because they have fight first, and perhaps in a meta where skirmishing melee units were really common, then having units of these hanging around behind walls on objectives would be great. But I almost never care about that.
Yeah. Okay. So you don't value the infiltrate on that unit all that much, because like I know like last edition, you basically every list had to bring 2 infiltrators, otherwise World Eaters are going to kill you. But in this edition, it doesn't really seem like that's quite as important right now.
Yeah, infiltrate would be a really powerful hammer ability, but they're not strong enough to be a hammer.
Yep.
And they can fight first to win fights versus other skirmishers, but it doesn't matter.
I was thinking simply from like a move blocking standpoint, but no.
Oh, I see. I guess you could take 75 points and try to move block. Perhaps that's good against World Eaters or something, people who actually can turn 1 charge.
Yeah, and I guess since there's just not nearly as much of it, maybe it is a lot less valuable in this edition. Maybe in a different meta, as it develops, if we see a lot more of those alpha strikes coming up, then they get a different position. But for now, it sounds like a C to me. What do you think?
Yeah, C. High C, I would say.
Yeah. Okay.
I think, Go, let's continue.
Okay.
Sorry.
No problems. This is the Venomthrope. This guy is a little bit annoying because Dense Cover is much harder to come by, and it's really nice to have a -1 to hit aura.
Yeah, I agree. A.
Okay. Well, I guess especially if you're going to be running the shooting Tyranid list where you're going to want the Zoanthropes and the extras everywhere.
Yeah.
The 3 models can stretch out really well, and it's really easy to probably cover basically your entire army.
Yeah, they're just 70 points. So at first I thought I would play 2 or 3 of these, but they've lost some speed, and they've lost their mortal wound thing, and they've lost their fight last. So I've found myself just wanting 1, but I take 1 all the time.
Okay, cool, right on. Yeah, and it does seem like a 1 unit thing too. That's what I was saying. Now we're talking about guys who are actually terrifying, even though when I initially looked at them, I thought they got a lot worse. But they're pretty freaking scary. Let's talk about these Zoanthropes.
Yeah, Zoanthropes, they have psychic shooting attacks. They have a blast shot and a focused shot. The focused shot is 1 shot per model, strength 12, AP3, damage D6 +1. That's quite good.
Yeah. And
they're just 30 points a model. So shall we look at their efficiency?
Yeah, it's a 30 points sounds a hell of a lot better than 75 points. They may have gotten a little over nerfed at the end. Where are we? Zoanthropes, the last ones. Okay, cool. Is this which profile is this? Oh, this is combined.
It's combined. The way the sheet works is that it tries both and just picks whichever one is best into each target.
Okay, cool.
So if we look at this, I think this is a good line, but it's much worse than the other things we looked at. For instance, what are they called? Reveners had much better numbers, but the Reveners are a melee unit, so shooting units get a lot more slack. They're generally less efficient. So it is a good profile. It's pretty good into everything, and it's one of our best things for killing vehicles, and I need to kill vehicles.
I really like that their shooting is going to be benefiting from the sustained hits if you're going into a heavy infantry melee army like my Custodes.
Mm-hmm.
And you're also getting the lethal on their big ones if you're going into the vehicle meta list as well.
Yeah, and they actually have on the focus shot, they have lethal hits on the profile.
They do?
So if you're shooting at Custodes, you would get both lethal hits and sustained hits.
Yeah, that's gross. That's gross.
So in another meta, maybe these would be worse, since their stat profile is just good. It's not fantastic, it's just good. But I have to kill vehicles. I almost always play at least 9 of these, so I guess that's S. So
that sounds like S for your army. But I think in the context of the overall Tyranids, does that sound more like an A to you, or does it just sound S to you because you're playing a shooting Tyranids list? Do you feel like this is the only way to run Tyranids? I'm not overriding you here, by the way. I'm asking a clarifying question.
That's a good. I haven't explored. I've mostly been playing mid-range lists with a walking hive tyrant and some shooting.
Okay.
But I can't see how you handle vehicles without this. Maybe someone has tried successfully. I haven't made it work. So I would say yes. I have to have them.
I am not going to override you there. Just thought that the question might be able to shake some nuance loose.
You could maybe run a big unit with old one eye, come in from rapid ingress and smash stuff. That could work. I want to do that too. Perhaps you're playing it. Perhaps you're playing in a meta with all orcs or something, and you don't have to kill all the vehicles. But I would say S in this meta.
Cool, fair enough. All right, so then we're going into some things that I don't even know. Can you even use these right now? Are they usable? The Sporocyst?
The Sporocyst. I think it's you're allowed to use it. I don't really know what's going on with that whole thing. I would put it check it at the bottom of a C with low confidence.
With low confidence. Okay. Is there anything in particular to say about it, or are we just moving straight through?
We can move straight through.
Perfect. All right, then we got the Mawloc. Mawlocs. I actually don't know anything about the Mawloc. I know about its brother, but I don't know much about the Mawloc. Tell me about it.
The Mawloc deep strikes, and it has an ability to deal. When it comes up, it deals roughly D3 mortal wounds to all units within 12.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
And it can be quite easy hitting multiple units with that. In my experience, you almost always get 2 units, and you often get 3. And it's okay in combat. But it's 140 points, which is a bit expensive. So somewhere between B and C in my book.
Okay. Well, let's pop them right there, because I think the deep striking a big, powerful monster that can also slap you there is just inherent value in that.
I agree.
So then we'll move on pretty quickly. We have the Psychophage. This is also one of those new crazy cool new models. If you guys hear noise in the background, it's just because my wife is home and we're babysitting some cute puppies, and so she's going all puppy mode. So that's what you hear right there.
Yeah, sure.
So we got the Psychophage here. Did you have anything to say about him?
It's disappointing.
He's really good in 2000 Suns and Grey Knights, right? yeah.
But he deals absolutely no damage into everything else, and that could be fine. We have lots of support pieces. He's 125 points. He has a 5-up Feel No Pain, so it's decently tanky actually.
Okay.
So the main thing I would be looking to use it for is to give a 6-up Feel No Pain to my army.
Oh, that's actually pretty cool.
But it's only 6 inches, and so if it had been a 5-up Feel No Pain aura, then I would be all into it, because then I want to clump my entire army around it to get that insane buff to durability. But with only a 6-up, I feel that it isn't quite worth it to have all my stuff stand close by to it, and then if I don't do that, it doesn't really do anything.
Gotcha. It seems to me like one of the problems with Nids is that you do have all these auras. You got the Venomthropes, you got the Walkrant's aura, you've got this guy's aura, and it seems like since the models are all so big, like stacking your auras gets very challenging very quickly.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Cool.
So I would say C. Niche useful, but I don't quite see it.
All right, and I'm not arguing because I don't really know much about it, but it does sound like it's fairly useful to me, just right off the bat. Okay, this is a Carnifex with a heavy venom cannon, but we'll just say this is all Carnifexes.
Yep. Carnifexes are in a fun spot.
Okay.
I think they're bad. The datasheet, it costs 125 points. It's not good enough.
Okay.
There are 2 things speaking to their advantage, though. One, they have a neat ability that lets you move d6 plus 2 inches when they're shot, if they take damage.
Okay.
And 2, Old One Eye can join them, and if Old One Eye joins them, they all get reroll, full reroll to hit.
That's nice.
So I think it's C on their own terms.
Okay.
But if I'm playing Old One Eye, which I want to be doing, then having 1 or maybe 2 of those is nice to support him.
So C by itself, but in the context of how they're actually going to be brought, we're thinking more A.
I would say B.
Okay. Because what is their damage up? Do you mind if we take a look at that real fast?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
because the Carnifexes, like, how do they actually perform? Let's go with I want no old one eye. Which list would be the no one old one eye?
The one at the top.
The 17.
Line 17, yeah.
All right, so this is the Carnifexes right here. This is the PvP for them.
And this is both shooting and melee combined.
So that's combined.
So if you only get to shoot, it's much worse.
All right, all right. So this is without old one eye, and then when we put them with old one eye, let's take a look at how that does. Okay, so they vastly improve when they go with old one eye.
Yes, but like they're still not great. The values are about around 2, and I want maybe 1.5 across the board for my scary melee units. So it's okay.
Okay. Fair enough. Yeah, okay, they get to like the 1.1 against the Night Despoiler, 1.3 against the Lehman Russ, which is pretty good.
Agreed.
1.4, 1.4 into Obliterators. All right, I gotcha. I can see it. Terminator's 1.7, that's pretty solid. But that's with old one eye in the context of that.
That's with old one eye, and yeah. So okay, but I would say B.
Fair enough.
If you're, I would not take them without old one eye.
That sounds fair to me.
And then you rapid ingress them, of course.
Right. Okay, I think this is going to be is this the Tervigon or the Tyranifex here? I think that's the Tervigon.
I can't.
Yeah, I think I see some gestation
Tervigon.
stacks. All right, tell me about Tervigon.
Cool.
I haven't seen them yet, so I'm assuming people aren't super happy about it.
It costs 200 points, is tanky, and doesn't do very much. Low C, I guess. It heals some Gaunts.
And honestly, Gaunts are just never going to get a chance to get healed because in a Deathleaper or a Guard indirect meta, they're going to be obliterated. Or an Eldar meta, the Eldar will just mortal wound them to oblivion, so you'll never get a chance to heal them.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Next we have, man, I want this guy to be good. Why can't GW just put in specific rules that mean that their tentacles don't count as actually part of the model and they can move without them? Like,
yeah, in the last book, the Toxicrene had good stats and was unplayable because of its tentacles. Now it is expensive, has bad stats, and is unplayable because of the tentacles. So just check it in D.
Ugh, that sucks, man. Then we have the Trygon. Now, I know I was speaking to my buddy Yog, who's actually in the comments right now. Hey Yog, what's up, buddy? And the Trygon is actually pretty awesome. He has some really cool utility. And when you and I were speaking before the live stream about this, I know some people think the Trygon's super overcosted. He's not very good. And I think if we look at his PPP, we'll see that it's not that great, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just take a look here before I start talking. It's actually, that's damage, right? So then we're on the Trygon. Yeah, so the Trygon's PPP isn't anything super impressive. It's not terrible either, though. Like when we get into our Terminators, it's a 1.6, which is a solid profile of the Terminators. Night Explorer, we get to a 1.7. But the thing about this guy is it's his utility that really interests me. So a 3-inch deep strike. A 3-inch deep strike as a rapid ingress is unbelievably powerful because suddenly you have a target that your opponent must deal with. They don't have an option because when it comes in, it will be charging in its next turn, right? There's no way to stop it. You can't be like, oh, I'll deal with that in 2 turns from now. You must deal with it now, which can force an entire army to just completely turn around to go back to their home field. If, say, it's a mission where you're trying to deny capture any outpost for 8 points, you have to deny your opponent those 8 points. So I think with his utility, he becomes extremely valuable. But the problem is, as it looks right now, is that you're choosing him or the old one-eye blob or the heart respect. So it seems very challenging to get all 3 of them into your army. Was that fair?
Yeah, that's fair. Great utility, damage, and space is limited for rapid ingress targets.
And because of that, I think that sounds like a perfect B tier unit.
You're thinking I'm thinking C, but if you like him in B for the utility, that's also reasonable.
So I'm gonna say B here because it puts something in your army that hasn't happened yet. There's been nothing like that yet. Coming in at 3 inches is a really big difference than coming in at 9 inches.
Yeah.
At 3 inches, you can come on my objective.
This is a tool that isn't anywhere else.
Yeah, I don't see it really many other places in the game except for like maybe GSC, right? And because
Mm.
of that, I think it gives you something that really terrifies me as a non-Nids player that I'm really having to think about the entire game.
Yeah.
Um,
If it was 150, I would probably play it
if it
rather
was
than 180.
150, I'd be arguing for a lot higher than P, to be honest with you. So I'm going to step in a little bit on here
Yeah,
because maybe
cool.
Tyranid players don't see it, but non-Tyranid players see this thing and go, "Holy crap!" I promise you that. All right, Exocrines.
Exocrines are other good shoot unit. They're 135 for a monster. They're
Okay.
pretty decent at shooting. They give the entirety of the rest of your shooting army reroll ones to hit against the target. I'm always playing at least one, most often two, sometimes three. So I would put them in S for that.
Fair enough.
It's not incredible killy on the stat line itself, but it's one of our two best shooting units.
And the thing is that he also makes all your other shooting much better.
Yeah, exactly.
Because when you give the reroll ones to the rest of your army after he shoots first, and you stack it with a Pyrovore who then removed cover first, suddenly you're dealing a heck of a lot more damage than your opponent was really planning on. I know you did this to one of my big Guardian blocks. I just wasn't ready for it because I couldn't understand the stacks until it was finally applied to me. But you removed my cover, then you hit me with the X-Crin, so then suddenly your freaking 9 Zoanthropes are all rerolling ones to hit against me, and that amplified your damage output like to a crazy point. So maybe by himself he's not necessarily amazing, but in the context of how he builds into the rest of the army, he sounds pretty incredible.
I think so.
Do you see 3 of them in a list, or do you see 1?
I like any of those are fine. I'm
Okay.
not quite sure. I usually play 2,
Cool.
and one I need a specific reason to play just one.
Gotcha. Okay. How about the Sporocyst? Is this, or I'm sorry, the Tyrannocyst? Tyrannocyte.
The Tyrannocyte, that's the Tyranid drop pod.
Yep.
Maybe there is some use case for it. I don't quite see it. It's 105 points for a drop pod. I think it's a bit
monsters?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it's a bit expensive. You get to get in on turn 1. I've seen it used with shock cannon Tyrant guard. If they were actually Jonathan, if the shock cannon Tyrant guard were a good unit, then I could see this. But as it is, I'm a bit skeptical.
Okay.
I'm a bit suspicious of it. So I would say C. Maybe there is a use somewhere. I haven't quite seen it.
And I think that's fair. Maybe meta develops and we see someone do something really innovative with it. Because I mean, having a drop pod that can bring you in turn 1 is valuable. We just don't know how valuable it is in this context until someone makes it valuable. So maybe someone does it, and then we can change our minds later. Oh, there's a wound cap. That's all right. Thanks, Carnifex. Thank you for clarifying that. So apparently there's a wound cap on what is allowed to go in it. Okay, then we have the Screamer Killer, who is once again an amazing model, and his damage looks pretty great. Is that real?
Yeah, he does a lot of damage if you're just looking at the stats.
Okay.
The problem is that it's 180, and it's a slow melee monster, and it just dies. If it was 120, he's 180.
Okay.
I want him to be 50 points cheaper before I think about it.
He's 180, and the horror specs is what, 135?
125.
Okay, all right, guys, listen. So the Screamer Kill is good, and the model is awesome, but in the context of a horror specs, which is coming up real soon, being 125, I don't see any purpose for this guy ever.
No, I think low C.
Yeah, that seems reasonable.
Maybe if you put him in D, I won't.
I'm not going to put him into D because I play Orcs, and if you have seen our Death Dreads, you know, I would dream for a Screamer Killer at 180 in Orcs. So I can't bring myself to put it into D, but I'm happy to put him down into C, and just with the thought process that, holy crap, horror specs are still out there. Why would you ever consider this? In a competitive context, obviously. All right, then we have the Tyranifex, who is actually pretty freaking cool.
Yeah, the Tyranifex is pretty cool. Shall we start with bad news?
Yeah, let's start with bad news. I like bad news.
let's go look at the monster damage
Tyranid monsters.
efficiency.
Tyranifax. Okay, this doesn't look that great.
There are 3 lines, one for the acid spray, one for the rupture cannon, and one for the flashbow, and none of them are particularly good. The rupture cannon is okay into some heavy targets.
I assume the rupture cannon is the third one that says heavy on it?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay,
it's the third one.
Cool.
It does decent damage on average, but it's only 2 shots, and if they have an invul save or something, much of the time it doesn't do anything, and maybe they CP reroll their invul save. It's 2d6 damage. Losing that on a CP reroll save hurts for you. So it's too random to actually be good, I think, even though the average is okay.
Okay, fair enough.
So what becomes interesting is that if we move over to the tankiness sheet again.
Targets, damn. Oh, right, that was a different sheet. Tankiness. I really like this tankiness sheet. I'm going to have to try to fill this out for some other things as well. Okay.
So if we look at the Tyranifex, it's way over on the right. It costs 200 points. It has 16 wounds, toughness 12, a 2-up save, and then -1 damage. So if we look at damage from Desolation Marines, for instance, it's 3.3 PPP on a Tyranifex versus 1.2 on a Warcrunt. So it takes almost 3 times as much effort killing it compared to a Warcrunt.
That's cool.
2 times as much if the Warcrunt has Feel No Pain. So it's really tanky and it's difficult to move. So what I want to do with this is to give it a flamer and then shove it up on a board, up the board, stand on an objective, and overwatch enemies, dealing a bit of damage, and then forcing them to deal with it. And some of the time they can't.
Yeah, I think what you just said is actually really important for people to remember. So the Tyranifex, his PPP. Sorry, let me pull his PPP up one more time. His PPP actually doesn't look very good with the flamer. I think you said that was the first line. But what you also have to remember is that this dude realistically is shooting this twice every turn. So in all reality, his damage output's actually significantly more because whenever he overwatches, he's auto hitting with his flamer, and within 18 inches of it, that's a good overwatch. So when you run the Tyranifex, you have to plan for the fact that even though his damage on just one round of shooting is that great, he's getting 2 rounds of shooting every turn.
It's very reasonable with 2.
Yeah, which also means that their damage output goes down dramatically when you take a second one.
Yeah, I often play 1 if I want to fill that role, but I've seen some lists with 2, but I don't quite see it. Maybe there is some sort of plan that I've missed.
Yep. All right, so this guy, where are we running him?
I like him in A. I think the role he brings is one very worthy of consideration. I don't play him all the time, but I often play 1.
Now, let's talk about a model that I'm not going to ask you where he goes, because I know where he goes, because you tried to tell me he's not that good. And then I looked at you, and I think I gave you the finger. Because this guy is freaking amazing. Are we still going to argue about this? Okay, let's do it. Sell me, baby. Talk to me about the horror specs.
The horror specs and why it's bad that's the title of the talk.
Shots fired. Let's do it, baby.
Okay, so the story starts by looking at the PPP sheet.
Let's do it. Tyranid monsters, horror specs. Here we go.
If you just highlight the horror specs line in the monster sheet,
how do I do
compare? If you just click on 36 on the very left.
Yep.
And just compare. Look at that line and look at all the other lines.
Yeah.
The horror specs is great. King of monsters.
0.8 into Ignite Despoiler, 1.2 into Armigers, 0.9 into Raiders. He's sick.
This isn't even counting lethal hits from from his ability. So horror specs, King of Monsters, 125 points.
Oh,
and we can even go into the tankiness sheet for good measure.
Okay. Tankiness, here we go.
So
horror
he's
specs.
Yeah.
On 21, yep.
It's not insane like the Tyranifex, but it's more tanky than all of its neighboring monsters. So it's quite tanky.
Okay, so he actually is tanky, and he crushes. And when you stack his damage on with the fact that, holy crap, dude is also going to get sustained hits against infantry if you're running against an infantry list, or lethal hits against whatever.
Yeah. So my first initial take is that Haruspex, King of Monsters, you're S tier.
Yeah.
The problem, though, there is a problem, sadly.
Okay.
Is with your rapid ingress budget. So you're going to run in this guy as rapid ingress because running slow melee monsters up the board is the recipe to lose. Not in every matchup, but in many matchups. So the problem is that even though he's insanely efficient compared to the rest of the codex, you're still only delivering 125 points of killiness when you bring him. So compared to the old one-eye bomb, for instance, the old one-eye bomb can threaten a big knight, and the Haruspex simply can't. So if you need to take out a big target, the Haruspex can't do it. And for that reason, I'm thinking high A, since you only have 2 slots, and while he uses your points very efficiently, he doesn't use your rapid ingress slots very efficiently.
Does he not? Because what's your other rapid ingress target, right? Because assuming we're choosing between a Trygon, the Haruspex, and the old one-eye blob. The old one-eye blob it sounds like he's the priority for the rapid ingress, typically speaking. So
yes,
you have another turn of rapid ingress.
Yes, so the choice is, do you run the Haruspex or do you run the Raveners?
Oh, the Raveners, that's right. We were talking about the Raveners.
Yeah, they also have really good PPP. So the Haruspex is good into more targets than the Raveners, but the Raveners deep strike.
Oh, and the Haruspex doesn't, so he's going to have to come to reserves. Yeah. I see. Okay.
I really like the
I hate that you just gave me a really good argument for not making this guy like the best thing, but that was actually like a rational and good explanation for why you don't call him S tier, and it was nonsense, and I hate it, but it was good. And I'm actually going to value here, which is freaking stupid, but you do sound actually correct, and crap, that was good. I will say that with our modern layouts, my Custodes are very typically running up the field with never being seen. And the Haruspex is not going to be quite as easy, but he's still faster than my Custodes.
They're infantry. The Haruspex is a snail. They are really fast.
Because they can go through the buildings. But like running up maybe on the side of... crap it, you're right. I'm just trying to bullshit my way through this.
still, I play one Haruspex in most of my lists. It's a really good unit for what it does.
And like if your opponent doesn't prioritize it because they're thinking, crap, I have to kill these zones, or he's getting close on the turn that you do rapid ingress your old one eye, and they want to focus the old one eye, and they don't put the time to respect the Haruspex, they're gonna get a horrible rude awakening. Yeah.
So I'm thinking A somewhere, maybe high A.
Cool. I'll drop him right next to old one eye because.
Yeah, cool.
All right, we're almost done, guys. We're really close. So we're just gonna really quickly run through the Maliceptor, the 2 flyers. And then we will briefly mention, we're going to talk about the Forgeworld. We don't have the data sheets here to list them, but we will talk about Forgeworld. So we're almost done. Bear with us. If you have any other questions, pop them down. Actually, Carnifex does have a little comment right here. He says, Raveners can also camp turn 1 and 2 at home and then go into reserves to then be the target of rapid ingress again. Oh, Carnifex coming in hot. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's good.
And that opens up the Haruspex for being a rapid ingress target.
Yes, then you could run 3, and then you could do the Raveners on turn 4. I think that's reasonable. You could do it. I don't like being constrained into having to do that, but it's definitely something that you could do.
That was a really good take there, Carnifex, so thanks for saying that. So if you guys didn't quite understand, because I mumbled my words through it, basically what he said is your Raveners have the ability to go back into reserves so that they can then come in via rapid ingress on turn 4 or even turn 5 if they had to. Whereas with your typical reserves, they have to come in on either turn 2 or turn 3. So that means that you can prioritize getting both Old One Eye and the Haruspex in on turns 2 and 3, and then on turns 3 and 4, or turns 4 and 5, you can then rapid ingress your Raveners as well. All right, so the Maliceptor. This guy has some pretty decent shooting. He's got some okay melee, but mostly he just kind of looks like he's fairly hard to kill.
Yeah. He's okay range 18 shooting, so he wants to go with the Walking Hive Tyrant, like all our stuff does. I think it's reasonable. low B perhaps. It's not as efficient as our other units. It's less efficient than our Exocrine. If you're already playing 3 Exocrines and thinking, oh man, I want 3 more, then I guess you could consider the Maleceptors.
Okay.
They also have an invul, which is neat.
Cool.
So if you're playing against a bunch of AP5 shooting, it becomes better. Most of my enemies have like AP2 and 3 shooting, and then you don't need the invul.
Okay, fair enough, man. I like it. The 2 flyers, is there anything to say about these flyers?
I think that they're bad. Maybe someone can convince me otherwise. I think they're D.
D for just don't. Guys, listen, so we're going to move on to the Forgeworld stuff. We're just going to start talking about it right now. If you want to argue with us about the flyers and you post a convincing argument in the comments, we will absolutely approach it, or address it. But for right now, let's just go into the Forgeworld models. These things are awesome. I was really darn sad when I didn't see the Dimacarian in there. That actually horribly upset me. I was playing with the Crusher Stampede. I did Leviathan code or Leviathan attachment for the 8th edition codex when I was playing Nids. I didn't play the new 9th edition codex, but I missed the Dimacarian. He was amazing. So he's not there. So instead we have the Barbed Hierodual, the Scythe Hierodual, then we have the Hierophant and the Harridan. So were you struck by any of these?
I don't think I'm going to play them. I think the Hieroduals, you can consider them for rapid ingress efficiency. So we don't have the pictures of them sadly here in this presentation, but we could look at the Forgeworld sheet instead, I guess.
I don't think I have it pulled up here, but
okay, sure. So
I should have, but I sucked.
The Hieroduals are okay in melee, 1.5 against big stuff, and the Barbed Hierodual, he's a trickster. He tricks you into believing he's a shooting unit, but actually he's like 8 PPP across the board and totally sucks at shooting. But he's okay at melee though. So the thing that you can do with these is that you can rapid ingress one of them. They're 305 points.
Here, I got it pulled up now, so sorry about my concern.
They're not efficient like the Harry specs, but they do more damage total. So if you want to be less point efficient and more rapid ingress slot efficient, you could consider one of these.
Cool. Let's actually look at their damage sheet, because you're saying that it's not that great, but just looking at it, it looks like it would be quite good, because D6 plus 3, and you have 2 of those. So I know I've looked I looked at it, and I was really surprised when I saw how they weren't really that efficient. That was a big surprise for me. So let's just take a picture just so everyone else can see. Where is our Forgeworld calculations? There we go. And guys, remember, these sheets are available for you, and they're in the description. You can go look at them whenever you would like. Okay, so we have the Barbed Hierodual, and let's look at the PPP there. So this is actually a really big surprise to me. I thought it would be better than this.
Me too.
Because this is the shooting and the melee combined, right? And then the bottom line is just the shooting?
So on the PPP, the top line is shooting and melee combined, and the bottom line is just the shooting.
So what is the target that you need this thing going into? It doesn't really look like it hits the things that you want it to. Combined, he's only a 2.3 against the Terminators, but I guess the PPP is always going to be worse with your expensive models. The point is, I think it might be more important to just look at the damage that they do, right?
Yes.
So let's look at the damage that they do, and this is a much prettier chart for the Barbed Hierodual.
Yeah.
So when we're looking at the Terminator, for example, oh wow, they only kill 1 Terminator with his biocannons?
Yeah.
Wow, that is a big surprise. Okay.
The reason for that.
Wow. Yeah.
The reason for that is that the gun is only AP2 and the Terminators are going to be standing in cover.
Sure, and then they can armor contempt you as well.
Yeah, I didn't account for that, and you could maybe counter the cover with the Pyrovore.
Yep.
But they're still saving on 3s most of the time.
Okay, that is actually really surprising to me when I see that. The AP2
and you win them on 3s. Yeah.
So their total damage output actually does get kind of good.
Yeah.
And the fact that they are still big and hard to kill does make them kind of matter. But yeah, okay, I'm seeing it now. That just doesn't cut it.
Yeah. So, but if you're already playing the old one-eye bomb with 2 Carnifexes, and you're thinking, I need more meat, more big smashy stuff, then I would consider one of them.
Yeah, I don't think it's actually terrible. It doesn't really, looking at the numbers though, it's not making top competitive list. But
probably not. In a different meta, maybe.
Right.
So I would think high C for the hero jewels.
Yeah, both of them looked basically the same. I mean, they are terrifying in melee. Like, let me just show what their stats were on melee here. Sorry, that's the wrong one. Here we go. Like, this is the side Cyrodiil. He's got 10 attacks, strength 14, AP2. See, it's the AP2 that gets it. It should be AP3. But it's got a 3d6 flamer, which is adorable, but yeah, they just don't quite. Okay, I see it. Harridan.
So, we have the 2 last, the Harridan and the Hierophant. They're somewhat similar. They're big, they cost a lot of points, they're very squishy. Oh, they have a lot of wounds, they have 30 wounds, but for their point cost, they're really squishy and don't deal a lot of damage.
Right.
So just on the face of it, they're bad. They might have one saving grace, which is that they're all the eggs in one basket. So if your opponent can't kill them, they do nothing. But I don't think I like them.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, looks like it'd be a lot of fun to put them on the tabletop, but yeah, they're not gonna cut it. Okay, so that's it then. Let's just go ahead and readdress this real quick, see if we wanted to shift anything. But honestly, I think we are pretty good on the list that we have here. I don't really think we need to fix anything. The order, guys, isn't really that important, so we're not gonna harp on all the order there. Sure. If you guys have any last minute questions, please type it in the chat and we'll get to it. This has been awesome, Stefan. Thanks for taking the time and going through all this.
This was really fun.
Where do you think Tyranids are overall right now?
I think Tyranids are a decent army. There are many armies that are better. It's maybe a mid-tier army, tier B somewhere. We struggle into Eldar, obviously. I think Knights can be. Knights are hard, and Marines is winnable, but it can be a bit hard. So yeah, middle of the pack somewhere. I think the army has a lot of play. We have very good objective tools, both for primary and for secondary. So there is a lot of space for making lists that score a lot of points.
Awesome. That's basically where I hear it. I think, and maybe I'm a little bit biased, but I actually think they're a little bit better than you're giving them credit for. But that's coming from someone who I think maybe gets countered by them a little bit. So maybe I'm perhaps a little bit biased there. But overall, it seems like you have the tools to do more or less everything.
Yeah.
Because even against the Knights, where you don't have the super high damage weaponry, I mean, you are getting lethal hits on everything into the vehicles in that context, right?
Yeah. If I'm going to badmouth Tyranids a bit, I'll say that the fighty units are a bit slow, and Nids aren't that good at killing stuff. They're great at objective play, but not that great at killing, which would be the minus with the army. But your points are great as well.
So we've got a pretty good question here from Manek Gudamani. Once again, sorry if I butchered that. But he's asking about secondary considerations. So for me personally, when I'm looking at basically every army in the game right now, is you're almost always going to be taking variable. Tyranids seem to be the exception. But do you think that exception disappears if they FAQ the Spore mines being able to score?
I'll cry myself to sleep, Jonathan, the day they FAQ the Biovores.
Because I mean, it's an auto 40 points on secondaries as is right now. You're always going to take behind main lines. You're always going to take engage on all fronts, right?
No.
Okay.
There is a scanner objective thing where you can drop one spore mine, just one in their deployment zone, or in the middle of the table for 4 or 2 points. It's just better than behind enemy lines.
Okay, cool.
So what I do is I look at my opponent's list and I think, are these guys going to be able to screen out their deployment zone all game? If yes, I usually take the random stuff, and if no, I take those two, engage and the scan thing. I've forgotten what it's called.
Fair enough.
And then score 40.
And then I think I did miss one from Manic also, and he was asking about the Zoanthropes, how you're running them. Is it always 3x3, or are you running a 6-man?
I my lists contain between 9 and 18.
Oh, okay. All right.
But 3x3 as far as it's possible to do so.
Mm-hmm.
If I want more, sometimes I want more than 9, and then you have some 6-man units. The 6-man units are great for getting more Zoanthropes, but they can be a bit unwieldy. And so yeah, 3-3-3 that adds 6s as you want more Zoanthropes. I see you, Manic, you suggest 6-3-3. I think that would be my most typical setup, I believe. 6-3-3 or 6-6-3, I think.
Fair enough. Cool. Guys, I think that's all we have today. So this is awesome. Spinum, thanks so much for your time. We will be breaking down basically every single faction. I'll be having a different expert on for each faction that I'm not the expert in. Like I said, like my main ones are Orcs and Custodes. On this channel here, we are actually breaking through a crazy amount of content, trying to figure out how to win the game of Warhammer as best we can. I know we've done a big, good movement tutorial. We've got a shooting tutorial coming out tomorrow, charge phase. We're really building up, so I appreciate all of your time and your considerations. If you would, please hit that like and that subscribe button because it really helps me a bunch as I'm trying to get more tactical awareness out to everyone. If you like this format of tier video where it's not just ranking the things we like, we're actually giving the tactical advice at the same time, leave a comment in for us. And any other questions for Spining or myself, I'll definitely be moderating the discussion, and I'm sure we could probably convince Spining to come on and answer some questions in the comment section that you guys may have later on.
Yeah, sure.
So until then, share this. All right, guys, thanks so much for your time. Svanum, you're awesome, and we are done for the day.